Hi everybody, and we're live. Welcome Monday here, Tropical Nomad, SpeakuP Monday, Destination Indonesia. I usually forget, the actual title of it. It's called Destination Indonesia. We're up to episode 303,
yeah,
which is amazing.
Yep.
And tonight we have yes. So tonight we have a wonderful guest, becoming a wonderful friend, Marlowe Bandem. Welcome to the show, my brother.
It's an honor and pleasure for me to be here. Thanks, Rob. I'm looking forward to, our discussions, this evening. Excellent.
Yes, and already before we even started, you introduced a word that I'm sure I'm going to use time and time again, and always credit you every time, which is a creatorpreneur.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Creatorpreneur. And for those of you who don't know Marlowe, Marlowe is very multidimensional. Much like myself, we have much in common, from banking to the Bali archives, to a machine learning project that you're working on that we'll get into now.
Yes.
As you mentioned, a culturalist, a person who really understands the heart and soul of what makes Bali beat. And look, based upon that, our title, is about the Bali archives. So before we go into your story, maybe you can explain to people, Bali archives. What do you mean by that, and what are you doing in that area?
So first of all, I'm so excited, for our talk tonight, and then, I had my daily goals already, daily exercise, and then I had my multivitamin shot, couple of bottles of beer, so we're set to go now, yeah? So hopefully everybody that's joining us through via the live feed, could also contribute with questions and everything. And then, I never put myself in a cage, just like you, in terms of what we do, who we are. It's all about how we become the people's people, not necessarily pleasuring people, but it's more about how we contribute. And then tonight, our premise is more about, one of the passion project that I've been doing is called the Bali 1928 Archives, which can go pretty much everywhere. So the Bali 1928 Archives is international collaboration between Bali via our institute here in Bali with a number of archives all around the world. Yeah, and we do have our principal researcher. His name is Dr. Edward Herb. So we do work closely together to repatriate or bring back the homecoming of the historical documents concerning Bali since the 1930s. So that is what we are currently doing. It has been an ongoing project since 2013, and basically this project has pretty much changed my life, because since I graduated from university, I have a degree in, you would not believe this, financial management.
I knew that was coming.
So by default, professionally, 9 to 5, I'm a banker. So I do work with micro banking, but since I've been joining voluntarily for this 1928 archives, now I'm a historical banker too. So it completes both spectrums,
What I love about you, one of the things I love about you is that, also you're involved in universities.
Yes.
Your family, and the university that you have is called?
It's called Institut Teknologi and Bisnis Stikom Bali. So since its inception in 2002, we have been projecting that this institute is a creative institute. So it merges all the ideas of not only necessarily technological, but also entrepreneurship, arts and culture, and definitely our concern to the environment. So these 5 pillars defines what we do in terms of our education and our outreach programs with the institute. Yeah.
And I remember we had a quick chat earlier on, and you were mentioning about how arts and culture for you are the access, to so much. I mean, maybe if you could just expand upon that, why do you feel that arts and culture really do hold some of the master keys for this?
True. So when we talk about Bali, we do have to remember that Bali is one of the islands among 17,100 islands all over the archipelago, and we are part of this, national identity that is defined by, we have 1,300 plus ethnicity, and then we also have 700 plus languages in Indonesia. We have 274 million people in this, great nation. And then to be part of that really shows, Bali as a domain of diversity. Yeah, in terms of that, we are part of one Indonesia that champions. This is what I think really caught me when I spoke with you. Yeah. Like, you do have one of the powerful motto, Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, unity and diversity. Yeah. So we do believe that these diversities, is an offering, is a potential for, diverse ideas, also diverse perspectives. And Bali can contribute in terms of its arts and culture. Because when we look back, this is what we do with the archive is, when we talk about Bali, you cannot separate the arts and culture. I do tend to define Bali not necessarily as a touristic, this one of these famous touristic destinations, but in terms of Bali as the devotion, as the offering to the world. Yeah. So you have Bali that stems from the word Wali, which means devotion, and the idea that the arts and culture comes from this understanding, this trinity of ideas that we call Siwam, Satyam, and Sundaram. Yeah.
Again, hit us with that one again.
Okay, so it's Siwam, Satyam, and Sundaram. Yeah, one of my great friends, DJ Chris Penny, when he heard about this, the first thing that he did was he tattooed, this idea. Because what? Let's talk about Siwam first. So in Bali, we do believe that the Balinese, is a construct of the pureness of the mind. So we as Balinese must, encourage ourselves to regulate our thinking in terms of pureness. And which later transform into your actions. Into your satyam, into your righteousness of behavior. So you have the mind, you have the action, but for the Balinese, it doesn't mean a thing if you don't do it in the Sundaram way. Sundaram is aesthetics, the beautiful way. So that is why in Bali, when we talk about the arts and culture, it comes from a pure mind, the righteousness action, and delivered so eloquently beautiful. So that defines, why the arts and culture, is an integral part of our daily living. And then, with this idea of the Siwam Satyam Sundaram, gives you the confidence, the cultural confidence, to regulate and define, how we present our devotion to life, to the universe, to others, through what we call the regulation of functions. The first one, when we talk about the pureness of the mind, we talk about the devotion, is talking about the wali, the sacred devotion. So when you come to a religious festival in Bali, you would see these three, Wali, Wewali, and Walih-Walihan. This is, the elaboration of the further concept of the Siwam Satyam Sundaram. When we talk about the sacredness, so everything that is presented, is truly for the devotion to, Almighty God, to universe, and this usually is presented in terms of the performing arts. So the wali is performed in the inner sanctum of the temple, the most sacred part of the temple. And here, this is when, I remember when I was a young, when I was a kid, my first interaction to learn the Balinese dance, because there is no rules. It's all about how you would come, be brave and join the celebration, because this is to the devotion. So the girls would dance the rejang. So the rejang is, very simple movements, no dramatic story. And then the boys would dance the baris, the warrior dance, as a presentation of devotion to the Almighty God and the universe. But at the same time, in the middle court, or what we call in Bali is the Jabat Tengah, you would also have people that are there to witness the ceremony. So, all of us can be there, you can be there, to give witness that, okay, today we are part of this ritual ceremony, and there would also be presentation of dance and drama. It's this inner sanction. It is about the transitional, the semi-sacred. So when in the inner courts you would have the rejang and the baris. So in the middle court you would have the topeng, the mask dance, and once the ceremony is nearing its end, you would have the Walih-Walihan, or as we say in Bali now, is the Bali-Balihan, the third category in terms of devotion, which is purely entertainment after the ceremony, and this is being done outside the courts of the temple. It's more about entertainment. People would come for the kecak dance, people would come for the joget dance, the social dance, where teenagers come, girls and boys dance together, entice one each other, flirt with one each other. And this is why in Bali, the arts and culture cannot be separated. Yeah.
I'm going to call him out, but it's okay because he just arrived. Fred.
Fred.
Right,
yeah.
Fred. So now, why did I bring him up? So you have people here who come to Bali and they just like it. Or maybe like Fred, they're just coming to see, well, what's Bali about? Or it might be a case of saying, well, I've been told to come here, but what should I expect? So this is the question, right? And because I know you have such a broad scope of knowledge, I'm gonna narrow it down to make it easier. So for someone who's just coming to Bali, maybe for the first time, including someone who's been in Bali, likes it, but doesn't understand why, what 2 or 3 things do you think contributes to that you could inform them about?
Yeah, so I hope it's not one of those eat, pray, and love moments, So when there's so many historical facts when you talk about Bali, So I would suggest that we go, to the start of the early 20th century, and we could see, the idea of Bali that is so completely different to the other areas around the archipelago. We are the safe haven of the Hindu Dharma religion, one of the centers here in Indonesia, which gives us color, to how we perceive us as part of the nation. So when you come to Bali, we do have the majestic offerings of the landscapes and everything. We do have the sanctity of ritual offerings, this and that. But I believe, that the strong point of Bali is its people. The soul of Bali lies on its people. And this really gives the openness, the courage, and also the flexibility to assess all these foreign influences which are fruitful for Bali or should be cast away from Bali. In 1904, there is this great visual bard from Holland. His name is Odeon and Nieuwenkamp. So he came in Bali, turn of the century, And Winyan Otokam is a visual bard. He's an illustrator, he's an artist. And the first thing that he did when he landed in Bali, in Pabian Buleleng, the port in Buleleng, North Bali, is assembling his bicycle. Yes. I do believe, I have this theory that this was the first bicycle in Bali. So he was assembling that. And imagine during this time, you would see a white man, blonde hair, pointy nose, really balancing himself on this two-wheel vehicles. That is such a strange, spectacle for the Balinese. I would say that I could imagine the Balinese people in North Bali would say, this is Ida Batara Melancaran. So the gods are, traveling throughout Bali, And the Balinese are a bit, attentive, a bit assertive, giving distance to what she's doing. But imagine a person like Nieuwenkamp understood that he was the focal point of the spectacle. So in contrast to other Dutch soldiers that came during the time, Nieuwenkamp slowed down, he parked his bicycle, and then out of his bag, instead of a gun, instead of a pistol, he took out his drawing book and pencil, and he started drawing what he saw. He started drawing all these majestic temples, all these big gapuras, the gateway. And then he just stood in one place, just taking his time to collect all these images about Bali, which made, that apprehensive feeling become so far away from the Balinese. And then they started coming together, having a peek. The connection started, and then suddenly you have communication. And then you have collaboration. This is the idea of Bali, that you have to embrace and interact yourself with the people. That is the only way. Yes, that is the only way that you can understand that amongst these differences, there is a spark to understand each other and enrich one another. Okay, so that was 1904. During his 6 tenures in Indonesia, Nieuwenkamp came 5 times to Bali. In 1906, he came back. Not with his bicycle this time. And then, it is his time to be surprised. Because of what? Because in one of the most sacred part of the temple at Pura Medue Karang in North Bali, he saw himself as part of a relief that is carved on the shrine. Literally, a Dutch soldier, pointy nose again, blonde hair, with all his, army look, and the bicycle was there. And he was so surprised, And I do believe that this is the message, the Balinese, to ensure that the message sustains generations. Where do they make it? At the temple. And I've been assessing, what is the message, The message is those who come, these foreign ideas, these foreign things, these foreign people, as long as they come to Bali in terms of this aesthetics and artistic perspective, they are welcome, open arms. Let's be brothers and sisters.
Thank you for explaining that. I know there's a lot more, but tonight I know I'm gonna have to. Otherwise, we're gonna be here for hours. I'm gonna love it. I'm gonna love it. But these guys, they're gonna run out of juice. Be like after 2 hours, we'll be going like this. So this part of what you just said about the embracing those two elements about Bali, and we had a very quick chat before, and it was about in business, and for those businesses, people moving to Bali for business, if they're able to to completely be on board and to allow this to come inside of them, then they are working with the forces and energies of Bali and are more likely to have success. Can you just explain that part?
Yeah. So, so when Nieuwenkamp saw himself as a relief, he understood that, there's this message of multiculturalism, the openness, that should be the foundation of how we connect and collaborate with each other. In 1917, to complete the story, the temple, Mudwe Karang Temple, was destroyed. It was destroyed because of the Gejar Bumi. Gejar Bumi is the great earthquake. Yeah. What happened there? The next generation of people at Kubu Tambahan, the name of the village, restored that relief. They restored it, but they gave it with a new spirit. What is the new spirit? They still have the bicycle, but they changed the wheels into a lotus. And then they changed his army soldier hat, his helmet, into the udang, the Balinese, headpiece. And that instead of using a pants, now suddenly you have this foreign person using the kaman or the sarung. So the idea that this message of openness, the bravery, to adopt to, all these beneficial foreign influences are important for the Balinese. Because what? In 1906, when he came, Nieuwenkamp was invited to see the invasion of Denpasar, Puri Denpasar. What happened? So when he came, he wrote to Anne, his wife, that what happened through the invasion of Puri Denpasar in 1906, or what we understand now as the Puputan Badung, is a mass murder and massacre. Because when they came, when the colonial army came, they were greeted not only by kings and soldiers with daggers or kris, facing the turbulent cannons and the guns and everything, but they were also greeted by women, holding their child, dressed in white and yellow, with spears, just going ahead straight to the bullets. So that shows you that when foreign influence come to dominate, to invade, this sanctuary of aesthetic and artistic, you will be faced by what we call puputan, or the fight till death. Even the soldiers said, please don't go forward, because if you go forward, we have to shoot you. That's why Nieuwenkamp mentioned in his letter that it was a massacre. So this is the idea that when we do in contemporary times, with all these developments in terms of the economical developments, especially with this tourism industry, we don't think using jargonistic expressions like sustainability, this and that, but we do have to tap into one another in terms of arts and culture. Yeah. So that is the viewpoint for all these corporations. I mean, what we do with the archivist, not only that we do disseminate all of these historical documents around Bali and Indonesia for free, using technology with the internet, but we also work with great big corporations here in Bali that is owned by expatriates, I mean, do continue your contribution to Bali in terms of developing roads, this and that. But let's talk in the near future how we can develop Bali as a hub, the creativepreneur hub. Yeah. So how we can contribute to world civilization, to the understanding and advancements of arts and culture of the world, in the framework of technology, and as you said before, make money in terms of the creative industry. So I do believe this is how we should approach Bali in the near future, now and the near future, and make it sustainable, for everybody. Yeah.
It's fascinating because we spoke before, and everyone knows me here. It's like, he's going to mention it. Of course I am, right? Trihita Karana,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
And what we were saying before, and I'll ask you to explain it in a minute, but is, by keeping in mind these three, ways, philosophies within Trihita Karana, we're able to create, conscious and sustainable communities, businesses, and people, which really do have it all. And I see that as one of the greatest things which I've learned in my life, 52 years, was that, which you're going to explain in a minute for those who don't know. And for me, it's an opportunity to create conscious communities around the world, right? So maybe we back up a little bit, and then you give us the
Karana. So from the regulation of functions in terms of our devotion to the universe of Wali, Wewali, and Walih-Walihan, we can, bring that further, in terms of what we call in Bali, not necessarily Trihita Karana, but Desa Kala Patra. Desa is space, the spatial experiences. Kala is time, and Patra is the convention that is created by the space and time. Which means that in Bali, the only eternal thing is change. So we have continuity in change, to quote the great Claire Holt, one of the famous researchers that came during the 1930s, that we can see that this island entity continues to be unique and distinct because of that. This attitude to embrace modernity, but while also preserving tradition. So you have that synergy in Bali. So now, that, in more recent times, becomes the understanding of Trihita Karana, the three reasons of prosperity. Not only for the Balinese, not only for this island entity, but everyone that comes to connect with Bali, physically and mentally. In 1928, the two great record labels from Germany, Odeon and Beka, expanded their operations, from all over Indonesia to Bali, because during the, first, couple of decades of the 20th century, Bali was just the same like the outside world. It was the time of discovery and creation. You remember the maiden flight of Wright brothers, where men now can fly. And then you would have this mass production of T. Ford automobiles in 1908. And who could forget, 1915, the great Albert Einstein conceived the idea of relativity theory. Yeah? And when we say about the arts, I do believe Nick LaRocca and the Dixieland Jazz produced their first vinyl of jazz in 1917, the Livery Stable Blues, which in Bali, at the same time, we have the rise of kebyar. Kebyar is a new form of gamelan, the Balinese instruments, and also a new method of playing it. So kebyar means lightning. So these youngsters in North Bali, 1914, 1915, were playing this ensemble collectively with the speed of lightning. So that is, the transformation from all these sacred ensembles, that is more refined into a more dynamic young, because it's becoming more democratic. There were no more kingdoms to become the patrons of the development of arts and culture. It became to the level of grassroots, to the level of the banjar, the hamlets, people would say that the kebyar was a response to how the Balinese view comedy Istanbul or the opera, the European theater with the Malay language or the marching band. You know, but that comes, you know, stemming from how the Balinese view the changing of times. So I do believe that when we talk about the Trihita Karana, we tend to omit time. You would have your relationship to the almighty universe, to humans, and also to the catatonic energies. Yeah, but we also have to remember that space-time, as Albert Einstein said, is inseparable. So we do have that in Bali. Yeah. Yeah, and that gives, you know, this competitive edge for the Balinese. What we call jengah, you know. You know, I'm throwing terms here, you know, but jengah is really important. It's healthy competition. It's that inner desire, inner motivation to become better day by day without being envious to the other person. Yeah. Jengah. Yeah. And when you talk about jengah, it's talking about how you can develop and establish your personal mastery in respective fields. Yeah. Which gives you, this is one term that maybe all of you have heard, taksu. Yes. Yeah. The taksu comes from the idea of that inner competitive, healthy competition to give you persona or charisma, your stage presence, you know, which based on the idea that people can do and better themselves. And what force is better to encourage you but the external forces? Right. Yeah, so that's why I'm a believer that Bali can sustain its future if we still, you know, be flexible about these foreign influences. Come on, we're now here in Bravo, Canggu, you know. It's so Bali, it's so cosmopolitan Bali. But, you know, during the celebration of the Balinese New Year, the Nyepi, the Saka year, you would see that, you know, all communities come together and celebrate, because I'm so proud of Nyepi because it just shows you how the Balinese can party with all these giant effigies and big dolls, you know, to scare all these, you know, negative forces around the villages. You know, you go around all the youngsters, you know. I'm using this term loosely. The bules also join, you know, the foreigners also come and celebrate. But what happens the next day? The next day, the Balinese people know how to rest. Everything is quiet. As if, you know, there's this idea, this philosophy in Bali that once you present all your prayers, let it subsist for a day. You know, make it, how do you say that? You know, make the energy, because you're transforming energy. The energy does not disappear, but it only transforms. But now you have to let it stay for a while.
You know, I spent time, maybe he's watching now. I call her Sister G. If she's watching, she knows who she is. And we go to a village in Gianyar and see a 2RG, who's a Brahma.
Yes, Brahmana.
And we have these hour. I've seen him twice. I think the first time was about 5 hours long. Just talking, and the second time I think about the same. But it's interesting because the parallels between, you know, the way that he sees life and the way that he supports people in his village to see life as well. There are parallels with that, and let's call it the West as well, right? So in that, for example, just what you've said, so, you know, the law of attraction, let's call it that, right, is one of, okay, so I declare what it is that I want. I visualize it, I embody it, I experience it, and then I let it go. In the same way as party, you do it, and the next day you rest. So there's all of these parallels, and there are many more. I mean, that was just one of them, but I find that fascinating. And I know you've got something to add there, but I also want to get on to, so you have a university.
Yes.
And I'd love to know how all of this
True.
finds its way
Yes.
into. So please tell people the name of the university
Yes.
again, so they get it, and just how do you not orchestrate, but how does this join
Yep.
within that structure?
Yeah. So when we go back to the early 90s, late 90s, we see this rapid development of Bali from this cultural tourism changing to a tourism culture. Yeah. So from this intimate, close interaction, personal collaboration between, the foreign influences with Bali, you suddenly have this mass consumption of Bali, as this safe haven for pleasure, material pleasure, spiritual pleasure, And then we saw that tourism, when the foundation started the institute is Institut Teknologi and Business Tikom Bali, we understood that there has to be this change. The paradigm of education should be changed. And during the time, nobody looked at technology. I do believe Facebook wasn't even there. And we saw that the idea about technology, because in Bali, we also have great technology. When we talk about the creation of gamelan, the instruments, that is high-tech, Balinese civilization, and then that's why when we push, the idea that technology can be, like people mention the glue, between creativity, spirituality, religiosity, and society. We started as the first institute to present, technology as an alternative to the Balinese youngsters. Yeah, I'm not saying that we don't benefit from tourism, but in the future we should relate other aspects of life with technology, as we are seeing now. And technology can be sustainable, can be widespread, and after the first few years, then for a technological institute, ITB Stikom Bali mandated all the students to learn the arts and culture of Bali, playing the gamelan, dancing the Balinese dance. And suddenly you would have, this creative hub where people can see that technology is not only about, robotics, not only about the industry, because we don't have manufacture in Bali. We only have manufacture. Yeah. Yeah. So the orange economy.
Creatorpreneur, manufacturer. I'm learning some stuff.
So this is why that the institute has been going successfully until now, and we are open for collaborations, because diversity gives you, the understanding of differences, and inclusion, to have that inclusive culture to enrich one another with, interesting and engaging ideas. Yeah. So now, we relate everything to technology, from entrepreneurship, arts, culture, and then how we care about the environment. We push these Balinese youngsters to think technology, as the medium, to safeguard our arts and culture. Nice. Yeah. I have a quick example. In 2017, after a decade-long debate of the inappropriate joget. So the joget is a social dance that is performed pretty much everywhere around the island as a celebration. So you would have these female dancers, enticing the audience to become part of the performance. And as one of the dance that has been inscribed as the World Legacy by UNESCO, suddenly you would see people uploading all this inappropriate joget. What I'm saying about inappropriate joget, in the past, the dancers have that mutual respect. You're a female, I'm a male. this is our destiny, but I do, have all these boundaries, not only to respect you as a female, but also me as a male. But now suddenly, this period where you would see youngsters come and, perform all these inappropriate, sexual movements on the stage. And everybody was seeing it like, this is the degradation of the culture, the misunderstanding, and this is because of the foreign influences, all what we saw on TV, this and that, Suddenly you're finding scapegoats, instead of, really looking inside and think about new ways of education. So what we did was, the government had this idea, a really simple idea. Why don't we just come together and write a letter to Google, YouTube, Twitter, all of these big tech companies, and they would, voluntarily help us, get rid of all this content. I would say that is an ideal, but cannot be achieved, Who cares about that, So what we did is we understood that the problem was at the medium of social media. So we took on the fight there. We invited, 80 people representing universities from all over Bali, creative communities, artists, performers. We got them together to ITB Stikom Bali. We provided, 2 rooms, 40 with computer stations and 1 for their own gadgets, their laptops, their smartphones. And we gave a workshop that why we should do a campaign called Stop Joget Jaruh. Let's stop this inappropriate joget by flagging and reporting with a concise reason. Why? And then just using one IP address, in 1 hour, we managed to flag and report 4,000 inappropriate contents. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. So what happened there? It shows you that through technology, this cultural entity, which we can call really small, started to take on the fight, using technology. And not only, and because it's so widespread, we did collaborations with the Bog cartoon magazine, so they made all these, educational yet comic posters, which can, not, that really people can relate to. And then we gave the reasons, we gave the manual, this is what you do, log into your account, and then start looking for this and that. And then just in 1 hour, 4,000 inappropriate contents were tagged and reported. Most of the people that uploaded this content as part of the citizen journalism started to understand that this is not only about monetizing. This is about safekeeping arts and culture for the future generation. What happens if you see a female dancer being, assaulted, on stage? Doesn't that mean that you're teaching the kids not to respect women? Yeah. So now they understood the bigger picture. And then, not only that, they voluntarily took down all their content, which went up to the millions views, making good money. But suddenly they realized that they can be the solution to the problem. Right. And then, YouTube, Google also help us, to strike all these contents. So, for me, it shows you the power of technology, and people do think that these are opposing forces, like North and South, technology and cultures are way. But they're not. Technology is part of our civilization, our culture. Imagine, during the past, when human discovered fire, what came about from that? It came about storytelling. Civilization. So that's what I mean, that now in terms of Bali, with all of this, come on, we're at the place really nice, really interactive here at Tropical Nomad. Tropical Nomad really fits, how we can collaborate, not only here, but all over Bali, and bring up, our expertise and work on, how we can shape Bali. And I do believe that we don't have to rely on the government. The private sector is one powerful, part of the academics, the business, and the government that can really do the transformation and change. Yeah. I've been seeing all the talks for Speak Up Monday, and
that's right. You've been binge watching.
I've binge watching, and I was saying to myself that, man, what can I offer to this, to this discussion, yeah? But, coming here and seeing all these great, drawings from from Sanur, from Batuan too, it shows that this is how you communicate Bali. Yeah.
There's so much, but people in the audience, in about 10 minutes' time, if you want some questions,
please do so.
Feel free, because we can talk forever. You can definitely talk forever, for sure, and I certainly can without breathing. So there's a few things that come up, right?
Yeah.
So one is that you're a banker. We'll get to that. Two is that you create this DJ community with vinyl, right? The vinyl lovers, which I want to get into as well. But before we get to both of those, just a little bit about your background, because I know that your family have been doing some great things here in Bali and so on, but what made you like this? Because I see so many similarities between us, which we discussed already.
Yeah, I thought you answered that because Rob
how?
and I, we do believe that we can say no. Not in terms of pleasuring people, but being the people's people, how we contribute, So a bit of a background is that I was raised in this community of artisans, in Singapadu village, where it's famous for the performing arts and the birth of the Barong and Chris dance in 1948. Wow. By the three trio of Singapadu, Ogoh-ogoh Tublan, Wayan Geria, and Imade Kredek, my grandfather. So you can see, the Barong, there is a sacred, mythical, lion creature that is only part of the sacred ceremonies suddenly become a touristic attraction. Bali is all about context. So as I grew up, there's no, direction or forcing that I have to be part of the arts and culture. That's why I pursued economics. I went to Australia, got my degree, financial management, came back, and as an idea to persuade by then my future father-in-law, he came to me. I came to him and I said, "This is the time that I'm going to propose to your daughter." What did Pak Ketut Artana said to me? "How are you going to feed my daughter?" You know what I did? You know what I said? I think this is you too, Rob. I said, well, I'm going to buy a bank. I'm going to do micro banking. Because during the 1988, this is a government regulation called Pakto, Paket Oktober. So with limited capital, you can own your own micro banking. So I said, I'm just going to do micro banking. And he came with his next question. Where are you going to get the money for the capital? Because during the time, let's say the value was $50,000, 500 juta. And I was a bit cornered, and I said, well, I'm going to borrow it from you. Because he was a businessman. Yeah. He was a famous businessman in terms of the Balinese textile. Which he did. He lended me 360 million rupiah. And we bought this dyeing bank in Badung, near Beringkit village, gitu. And we started from there. And now the bank has been growing now. And then for me, not only returning his capital, but also opening one branch at his village, as shows his contribution. Yeah. So I think these are the lessons that brought me to the realms of, creativepreneur, that from simple ideas, you can generate not only wealth for yourself and your family, but to allow that wealth to also be distributed to the masses in many forms. So it's all about contribution. You know, one of my great heroes, Ida Batara Pranda Madesidaman, you know, I usually I usually end, you know, my talk with this, but you know, this is a good premise to talk about it. So Ida Pranda Madesidaman, during his younger years, when he was going from an intellectual of the religion to become a priest as a spiritual guidance to the people, he went, you know, and studied, and he wrote a letter, a guguritan salampah laku. You know, salampah laku is the action of action. So he wrote to his wife that tonglah karang sawah, karang awake tandurin guna deusun ne kanggo ring desa-desa. Loosely translated, in the absence of rice fields, to cultivate oneself with knowledge that will be fruitful in your contribution to others. Yeah. So this is my guidance, you know, whatever we do, you know, in whatever subsector you are in this part of this creative economy now or the ideonomics, I think that, you know, the more diverse you are, you know, and open to challenges, I think you can become more fruitful to the others. Yeah. So that's why, you know, it's so easy to relate, you know, spin sugar, play vinyl, share story, you know, the idea that, you know, everyone can be a DJ, you know, but not everybody can show their respect and knowledge about music. So that is why spin sugar, play vinyl, share story. You know, you do have the physical form where people come, you know, play their collection, but the idea is talk about it. Yeah. So that was the impetus of the vinyl movement way back.
So give us the Instagram address because the guys would have missed it.
Yeah. It's Spin Sugar Bali. Yeah.
Spin Sugar Bali.
So one of my Chinese Balinese friend, or my teenage friend, his name is Ridwan Rudianto. We came together one day, just having coffee, but with portable record players, and we said, you know, let's just play some music and talk about it, you know, because we have different, you know, likings. And then people would look at us, and then, you know, just like Nieuwenkamp, people would come, you know, what are you guys doing, you know? And then we started from there, and then now it has become a large collective that I cannot keep count of how many events that we were doing, you know. Yeah. So it's just, Bali has shown us to become a medium for interaction, you know. Remember, I mean, come on, how we became close together. You know, we have Maggie, you know, which I knew way back from the Rumah Sanur Creative Hub. And then I saw her at Darga Gallery and said, Bli, do you want to participate in this event called Independence Day at Darga Gallery with Pak Rob? And I said, why not? You know, it's just that, you know, to really be part of Bali, you have to embrace it. Yeah. You know, don't be shy about it. Don't think too much about your contribution, but make sure when you do contribute, you mean it. Yeah. And then look at the bigger picture. I think that's the thing. Yeah.
You know, I love that. You know, Guzman, that third microphone, we'll probably lead it now, and Ayu. I just, like, we're not over yet. We'll take some questions from people here. Mm-hmm. But I just want to acknowledge you, brother, because, you know, that whole creativepreneur, you know, banking, music, archives, university, right, cultural studies, business, like there's a lot going on with you, and I can see and feel you from the time that we met, and it's really good, you know, like, again, there's things that we're going to do, which I'm going to definitely make sure that we connect with other people.
Yes, definitely.
But for now, let's go to questions. So does anyone have any questions?
Yeah,
if you
please
like,
do so.
Raise your hand. Sister Carol, I assumed it would be you first. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Marumba. Hello, Natalie. Good to see you too. Yeah. All right, so we're going to work that microphone underneath that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Good evening.
This question is for you, Rob.
Nah, this question is for you. I have so many questions. First of all, I really want to say what a pleasure it is to listen to a real storyteller.
Oh, no, thank
But
you
you're
for being
not only
here.
a storyteller, you are a wordsmith.
Yes.
No, no, no,
And
no, 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 no.
you really are. I mean, I'm a
Thank
storyteller.
you.
I'm a writer. I also used to be a university lecturer in responsible tourism.
Ah, okay.
But when I hear you, it's just pure pleasure.
Thank you.
It's little droplets of gold that just land in my head and in my soul, and I think it's absolutely beautiful. And I would say that to me, you don't sound like a history banker, but you definitely sound like a banker of stories. So,
Thank you.
I'm going to ask a controversial question, which I'm going to try to ask in a non-controversial way, which is very hard for a French person. But I want to go back to what you discussed about Puputan,
Yes.
this fighting to death. And what we are facing right now in Bali, which is a reality where the aesthetic and the beauty of this island is being destroyed on a daily basis, which is heartbreaking. And there are days where I wake up and I think, where is the Puputan? Because being French, my first reaction would be like, where are the people? Why isn't there such a more open fight against the disappearance and the theft of all this beauty? Because I'm seeing a culture that is slowly being invaded, that is slowly disappearing. And for as much as I love, hearing you,
Yes.
and hearing this kind of what I call, playfulness and innocence that I find here on the island, that just is inherent to people who live here, and it's very, very magical. And I agree with you that what makes this island is the people, but also the sanctity of their beliefs and the sanctity of these rituals. And what I'm seeing is that these are being less and less respected by tourists, because for how amazing and how happy we can be of having one day, that we all get together in Yepi and everyone is silent and everyone is forced to respect, it doesn't make up for the other 362 days where young tourists are getting drunk and causing mayhem on the streets. It just doesn't. So I understand this concept of being flexible and being open to modernity, but where is the limit? How much can you take in? And when does it stop? Because it looks like it's not about to stop.
Okay. Thank you. I mean, it feels that, when we talk about the current Bali, and we're talking about a shared vision of Bali, which is not only the shared vision of the Balinese, but also the shared vision about Bali that is understood by the influx of people coming to Bali from all over Indonesia and from all over the world. We are not looking and sharing at this same perspective about Bali. We have all the concepts about universality, sustainability, regenerative ideas, But there's also this prospect of a short-term gain through tourism. During the start of the pandemic, not only the government, but also NGOs and the people of Bali, everybody were outpouring, giving the comments, the critics, the outcry that Bali has to come back to its old ways, Let's go back to agriculture. Let's go back to the arts, Let's learn back from our religious philosophies, our social function, this and that. But suddenly, all these talks about sustainability, interactive tourism, community-based tourism, premium tourism, didn't go anywhere, because everybody wants to find this easy solution. Let's just make sure that people do come. When people are here, rame, there's a potential that we can, get this short-term gain. The key is education. So one of the important part of what we do at the Bali 1928 archives is not only the repatriation of the homecoming of these ideas about Bali in the past, or especially its interactivity and openness with the foreign world, but also to restore all these documents and provide, understanding not only from the Western world, but we allow all this data information to be accessed by the Balinese and give say to their alternative history. Based on these two things, we do go around what we call the dissemination project. We talk about the reality of Bali, what really happened in the past and the present, and where should we go in the future. As we mentioned before, tourism is only one small aspect about the creative economy here in Bali. It's all about, that keenness, that expertise in many fields, that relates to technology, that can make us, understand that in Bali, we do have our prosperity from the land, or what we call the kertemase. Imagine now, during this agricultural cycle, we have what we call the suba, or the irrigation, the dispersion, the distribution of water to cultivate the land. So when it's a dry season, they make all of these bendungan, the popol, the walls to make sure, and then use the bamboo to distribute water, to ensure that everybody gets their equal share. So we have this, regenerative and sustainable idea about it. But what happens if one of the owner of the land, without taking care about the future, thinking too far, he would say, the only thing that I can plant on my land is villas and bungalows, which later would present a problem where people do not offer religious festivities at the Subak temple. When there is no ceremony there's no the presentation of dance and gamelan, which means that we are not talking about our language, aesthetic language, including the Bahasa Bali, which in the near future, very quickly, would make the Balinese disappear, demise. So my idea about the dissemination of information is not to be against, to be defensive in terms of the tourism, but become more offensive in terms of creating comprehension. So that is why we have now a lot of collectives that are doing well in terms of, recycling, taking care of the environment, all the rivers, the beaches, and then I'm not just talking about, daily actions cleaning up beaches, but, really putting the idea that we are part of the environment, we are part of the ecosystem. Without that ecosystem, we're no more, And with that also comes the idea that investors that do come to Bali has faced the Puputan. The tolak reklamasi movement, it has become a social movement where youngsters do believe, that we are, we have to show our courage to investors that don't care about Bali in the long run, only, the short-term development. And this is where all of us can take part, you know. Just from small discussions like this, talks, exhibitions, art, you know. Let's talk about presenting that message through the arts. Yeah. So I do believe that we see the dangers, yeah, but we can make, we do have time, resources that Bali could be for all. Yeah. Something like that, yeah? So, yeah.
So now, Carol, you, for this one today, if you have a different question, we'll go for that. And if you want more about that, let's talk after, just so we get all right?
Yeah.
So if you have a different question,
Yep.
yeah? So many? Okay.
Yeah, don't worry.
All right, so who else wants to ask a question? And if not, we'll go back to Carol. So you've got one of it, Ichi. Yeah. Because listen, Carol, the thing is, my darling, as you know, is that these things come through, but some people aren't willing to ask, so it's good that you do.
Yeah.
So don't feel, not guilty, but don't feel like I'm asking too many questions, because other people want to ask those questions, but maybe haven't got the courage to ask. Just as long as they're different questions, though. Yeah.
When we started the archive, it's all based on questions, you know. Yeah. Why? Yeah. You know, how? You know, this is, I mean, the ability for us to unearth all these, you know, critical questions actually really builds character. So I love it, you know. Yeah, please.
Yeah, next one.
Hi, my name is Wina.
Yeah, Wina.
Nice to meet you. And I actually have 2 questions, but I'll start with one and then see if we have if we have time for the other one. So the first one is, I want to go back to the story that you told about how technology can help culture instead of being something that kills it. So then this is my opinion, and instead of a question, I just want to know what's your opinion about this, because I think religion is also a part of culture.
Yes.
And I believe that, not I believe, but so far what I've seen is that technology have trumped religion, or in a way, I've never seen a case where technology enhances religion. And I think, maybe in my opinion, is that technology is killing and replacing some facets of culture instead of being fully elevating culture. So technology does kill a little part of culture, but yeah. So I just want to know what's your opinion on that.
Wow, this is the tension between science and religion, which made me a more scientifically religious person. Yeah. So okay, in Bali.
Damn, you're good.
So we do in Bali have what we call nak mula keto. It's just like that. We take it for granted, you know. Like when you have, you know, ceremonies, you ask your grandmother, like, why do you make this canang sari? Gitu. She would just say like, mula keto, you know. It's just like that, you know. Don't ask so many questions. Just do it, you know. You know, that's because, you know, there's this philosophy about how you participate on all these religious activities that will bring you good karma, you know, in terms of the intellectuality, in terms of your actions. Everybody has their own part, yeah. So coming back to the idea about religion and technology, I'm a supporter that, you know, to see technology as a medium, actually, to become more inclusive to other people. When we studied the archive, there's this idea. When you want to repatriate historical documents, there's this, what we call the internationalist side, which, for instance, Rob, you would come to me and say, everybody has the right. Every person, every individual, every collective, every village, every government has the right to repatriate their historical documents to where these historical documents were created. But just make sure you have the best facilities and the best people to work on that. Yeah. So which means that when we did it, a bit difficult. Not only that we only had the courage, we didn't have the manual, And we don't also have the funding and the facilities to return all these great legacies from Colin McPhee, Miguel Covarrubias, and Rolf de Marie in terms of the physical form, which was were actually given permission. And then the other side, we have this nationalist idea that doesn't matter. We have to give them, all of these. This is a, more pacifist idea that because all these historical documents relate to the identity and the soul of the people, we have to give them the responsibility and trust to do that. Okay. So where were we? We were in the middle. And Dr. Edward Herbst and we had this lengthy discussion, and I said, why don't we just bring home the knowledge? We don't care about the 111 records or vinyl records that were made in 28 and 29. We're more concerned about the content, the knowledge. Let's use technology to do that. Let's digitize everything. Let's go to auction houses. Let's go to eBay. Let's go to all these rural areas in Texas and find all these recordings, including the museums in Jakarta, here also in the royal courts in Bali. We don't have to buy it. We don't have to store it. Let's just store it digitally. Yeah. So the knowledge is important. Without technology, I do believe we cannot manage this archive. We were one of the first archive that were trusted by many, many excellent archives all around the world to do this, because it's in the interest of the Balinese people. So when we did return it home, the first thing that we did? We made 1,000 CDs and DVDs in 2015, which were already obsolete during the time, because whenever we went to the villages with all these 5 volumes, 5 volumes of CDs and and videos, footage from the 1930s, all the people, the villagers would say, can you just also give us the equipment to play it? That came to a realization that we're not using enough technology. Yeah, that's why we started to make letters now, petitions, for us to be given the trust and permission to distribute all this material via the internet. We have to do it.
And blockchain.
Okay, true. One
It's
day
coming
soon,
at you.
Coming at you.
Simone can speak to you about that later on.
And then, when we did it, the response was great, because now everybody, especially the youngsters with their smartphones, can access all this knowledge. Yeah. And it would be really helpful for us. So whenever we come to these villages for all these events, outreach programs, in terms of photograph exhibitions, Cinema Bali 1928, which we should do here one day, all this silent 8mm, 16mm footage, and we talk and discuss about Bali, And when we come, we have that engagement. The youngsters, with questions, similar hard questions like what Carol did, what said, But it just shows you that technology makes us easier to disseminate all this information, and also the identification. The identification that when we crowdsource information, just using social media, Facebook, Twitter, you would have hundreds of shares, hundreds of comments, because it allows people to be on the same platform to do this dialogue, this two-way. And there are times when we have to stop all these comments, because it keeps going. But technology has helped us to involve people, the identification, this and that. And technology could be helpful. If you come to our campus, you would see a lot of applications that are more related to the arts and culture. How to learn the Samarandana instruments, how to learn yoga, how to make Balinese canang. Because you can't, when you bring the idea of religion in these times, people would just go like, as long as we have the same moral code, we respect each other, I think that's the religion of the contemporary times. But to learn the essence, using all of these applications, generate interest. People would, easily access it, and, can also directly critique and comment and enrich, these applications. So I do believe that is how we regulate, and, I'm not saying there's no problem. When we did it with the internet, we didn't realize that people would just share and use our footage, without giving credit. So we had to devise a section on our website, bali1928.net, about the copyright and licensing policy. We had to tell people, you can use this as long as you mention. That doesn't necessarily you have to mention the Bali 1928 archive, but you have to mention the great research that has been done by Colin McPhee, UCLA Ethnomusicology Archive, Miguel Covarrubias. And that, because what? People don't understand that when it comes to archiving, when people talk about your archive, your collection, all of these people that has been working so hard in museums, galleries, archives all around the world know that the content is important to you, and they would give you more. That's the key. And without technology, I think, you can be religiously scientifically or scientifically religious about it, But nowadays, I believe that we just need to provide more good content on this technological platform.
It's a very good answer. And I mean, earlier on, I think you were just over here, he brought up a few examples about how technology can bridge that gap, so maybe watch this over again and you'll hear those. But you had a second question.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so if you want to go for it, go for it, yeah.
All right, so is this on? Okay.
Yeah, just that mic up, please, Guzma.
Okay, so thank you so much for the answer. It enlightens, it gives me like a new perspective on how technology can enhance religion in a case that it helps create or push a better and more inclusive type of religion. Like, I remember that one time when the Pope commented something about LGBTQ community, and then it got posted, and then everyone can give their thoughts about it. Like, it creates like this, it becomes more inclusive. So thank you for the insight. And this brings me to my second question, because you are a Balinese.
Yes.
And I really wanted to know, what makes Bali such an open-minded culture? Is it because of the culture of Bali itself, or that, I know that there are a lot of foreigners coming in. Is it because, are these foreigners coming in because they feel invited or they feel welcome by the openness of the Bali culture in the first place, or is it because that there are many foreigners coming to Bali that Bali become an open-minded culture? So which one comes first, in your opinion?
Let's say Bali is the melting pot, of these great influences from around the world, good or bad, yeah. But it comes back to the individual itself, the collective itself, that depends on what you're searching in Bali. We cannot regulate that, yeah. But I do believe there's goodness in people, how they would contribute to this beautiful island. What made you come to Bali?
For work.
For work?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good, Jane Below, wife of Colin McPhee, came to Bali because of her interest in the different segment of the Balinese arts and culture, which is the trance dance. McPhee came to Bali because of the gamelan, yeah. What I'm saying is that we always have to, give space, and time to this relationship that we are building, and offering each other. Let's say in the 1930s, the rise of the Pitamaha movement. Pitamaha is the movement of the visual arts in Bali, where you have Rudolf Bonnet, you have Walter Spies with this idea of modern visual arts with depth of field, with which is so complete, with new themes, which is so completely different to the Balinese, which is during the time more two-dimensional and more for religious context. But suddenly they would see that there's freedom in creation, and suddenly you would have Ide Bagus Made painting the mighty Barong, having a drink at the river, So it becomes the engagement. And you would see how Victor von Plessen came to Bali, the idea of mythical Bali in the 1930s, the mystical Bali, with the creation of Insel Damonen, the island of demons, the story about unrequited love. When the love of this youngster was rejected, grandma came to play with all these magic spells, you know. And Victor von Plessen worked closely with Catherine Mershon, Walter Spies, and the great Wayan Limbak from Desa Bedulu to create this, and involving the whole villagers to do part of the movie, or you know, this commercial production. And you would see that what occurred because of that Insel Damonen, it gave rise to the idea of context. The sangyang, or the trance dance, the chanting that accompanies, you know, the sangyang is the dance, you know, to cast all the evil spells, is ignited by the vocal chanting of the kecha. You know, we have males, yeah, you know, all with all these short syllables doing the cha, the chuk, you know, the tuk, which gives, you know, this hypnotic cycle that would later transform all these girls that are dancing the sangyang into nymphs or deities. Yeah. But what happened because of that movie? They artistically separated the kecha and the sangyang into the kecha that we see in Uluwatu Temple now these days. That's the openness that I'm saying, because of the interaction, the engagement. Yeah. You know, there's so many examples about this, you know. Yeah. John Coase, yeah, one of the great, well, he's the pioneer of the arts and management, the event management to bring troops, to bring performing art groups to the Western world. John Coase, he's from UK, and then he came to Bali, assembled this group with all the trouble that he went to, especially with the negotiation with President Sukarno during the time in the 1950s. But he managed, yeah. And what happened? He brought, you know, the Pelihatan and Ubud Performing Arts Group to the UK and to the US, performing 21st September 1952, Toast of the Town at Sullivan Show, performing the Bumblebee Dance of Wayan Sampe and Raka Rasmi. Wayan Sampe is one of our treasures from the Colin McPhee collection from our footage. We've seen Wayan Sampe from this young, brimming with energy dancer, you know, that was adopted by Colin McPhee as his son taught him mathematics, language, dancing, and everywhere, and become a star at Sullivan Show when he was, you know, in his adulthood, performing on the same night with Edith Piaf, opening for Edith Piaf, the Bumblebee Dance, you know, and then concluded by the Monkey Warrior Dance, the Kecha Dance, yeah. Years before, the Beatles and the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley, was on that stage. So I'm saying that the Balinese have this tenacity, you know, for this, you know, to understand heart, you know, and we do this out of, you know, good fun and devotion too, you know. It doesn't matter where you perform, as long as you're on the stage and you do your dance, is always making people happy. When people are happy, the environment is happy, the universe is blessed. So I think that's the key when we talk about, you know, how we should learn from Bali's past, yeah, and use it as a foundation in the future.
You know, you're amazing, brother. It's funny, within a couple of minutes I told you that hey, I know exactly what we have to do, because I get you. What we're going to do now, I'm going to ask you one final question.
Yes.
And then after that, what I'm going to do, after that, what we'll do is that I'll get you to after that, maybe Yeah, we're actually bringing them together. So the way we usually end the show is, we give it back to you, the guest, to basically anything that maybe you want to reiterate or anything that comes up that you'd like to say, we'll give you that opportunity. Yeah. But I'm going to wrap that into the last question I'm going to give you. After that, we'll close this. We'll close the live because we're on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And then we'll switch off all of those. And then maybe for 10 minutes or so, any other questions that anyone has, which won't be on camera or won't be recorded, can be asked. And then after that, they can mob you, and you can leave here because Tropical Nomad is 24 hours a day. So maybe you can get out of here maybe this time tomorrow. All right. So before we get there, I just want to, again, as Carol did so beautifully, just want to acknowledge you. I had a strong, it's funny how feelings and gut feeling and intuition play a part with all of what we see and feel. But I felt this with you from the get-go, which is beautiful. So I'm really glad that we did this, and there's a lot more to come. We will do more of these, and we're focused on a different topic or whatever's coming up, because there's so many other aspects I'd really love to dive into. Just want to thank everybody here. Tropical Nomad, obviously Ichi, Guzman, Sister Ayu, the audience here. Remember, you can join us every week. I think it's the first time I've actually faced the camera, second time today. So feel free to come join us here at Tropical Nomad every Monday, 6 o'clock. Better to come because there's always traffic on the shortcut. Come at 6. Next week, we're back to blockchain. So once a month, we have the Silicon Bali decoded. And so look out for that. There'll be a panel up here of let's say, blockchain heroes. So that one is coming. And in the meantime, the last question that I want to ask you is, what kind of future, with all that we've discussed tonight and all the things and all the points we've touched, what kind of future would you love to see in Bali?
Yeah. So my kind of future in Bali is, based on the idea, that we not only can interact in this reality, but also in other realities in terms of what we now term as the new frontiers, the metaverse. Yeah. So we are, definitely you will be involved, and others of you can be part of this, because we are now building what we call the machine learning and artificial intelligence for the performing arts of Bali. Yeah, so we're making data sets of this, and this is open for everybody to be part of, Yeah, and then we can take this further, without being constrained by our space here, but also in the metaverse. So, I do believe that, that we are in this digital world. Even now we're sending drones to, and, all these time machines, time capsule to understand our existence, with the James Webb technology. And that is why I feel that we can create our ideal Bali through the metaverse. And especially with the evidence and the likelihood of blockchains, and which can make everybody be part of it.
And this is another conversation from the other day. Check out Bali Twin. Bali Twin. It's a group of people, working with government who are doing exactly this, but not necessarily music, but are creating in the metaverse like a twin of Bali. Yeah. And it's government endorsed. One of the founders I met the other day. Bali Twin. But we'll talk about that another time. Everybody, a round of applause, please, for Marlowe Bandem. Yeah.
Thanks, Rob.
My brother.
Oh, yeah.
My brother.